Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master, Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And as we start the broadcast this week, I'm finding myself once again, for the umpteenth time in my life, being taught humility by technology. And by my inability to understand, despite my background and my tremendous knowledge of it, why it is that it doesn't behave the way I want it to, which I guess puts me in with the rest of the population, doesn't it? But that's okay. You know, that's just the way we're starting the week. It's not the way the week is going to go or the way it's going to end. It's just the way we started. Anne-Marie, first of all, I'm glad we were able to connect after all the little glitches.
Oh, me too.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't want to miss another show.
I know. Well, you were here for one out of the last two, so that was good. It's just we need to, make it a more consistent thing. So yeah, well, good to see you again. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well, thanks, Walt.
And we're joined today by a special guest named Patti Handy, who is a financial coach, and particularly a coach to women who, well, I'll let her tell her story, but Patti talking about finances is something that we do often on the show, but haven't done a lot lately. So you're kind of, in a way, you're kind of helping to reintroduce a subject we haven't talked about in a while. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for being on the show. How you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll make talking about money fun and happy.
That's a good trick, actually. Yeah. Talking about money and making it fun is always good, because you're right. That is something that is worrisome to a lot of people of both genders, and not something that normally, we don't normally say money, fun in the same sentence. They don't normally go together. So if we can do that, that would be a good thing. Yeah. Well, give us a clue. Like, what's the first step to getting there?
To getting to money and fun?
Yeah.
It's how we look at it. I think if we look at it as something that is something that works for us, and that we have choices and options with money, and the fun we can do with money, that's a beautiful thing, versus thinking of money as a fearful and lacking in our life. It's sort of the mind shift, the mindset that we look at it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a good start. I like that. So now that we have a bit of a foundation, let's also get a little bit of a storyline too, because there's always a story behind how somebody ends up doing the things that they're doing that we talk about on the show. And I'm sure that's true for you too, as a financial coach. So how did you arrive to being a financial coach?
Yeah. So the actual seed was planted right after my divorce. I was divorced a long time ago. My son was 18 months old, and it was a very traumatic, very, I was very grief stricken. I had this, baby on my hand, and I was sad for him, and just all the emotions that you go through as you navigate divorce. And in my marriage, I was the one that managed the money. My ex-husband didn't understand finances and investing, so he let that be my thing. And I had this weird download. I remember one day, probably a month or so after my divorce, I was just sobbing in a fetal position, and I had this weird kind of God wink that the download was, you're going to be okay. You know how to manage your money. And it was the most oddest thing, because I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about my son. I was thinking about just navigating life and all the stuff you go through. And it was many months later, after I came out of the black cloud, that I thought someday I'm going to turn this experience and somehow turn it around and help women, because I know it's a very scary conversation, especially for single women. So, I focused on raising my son and working and my career. I got into mortgage lending. I was doing that for many years. Then I became a financial advisor. And while I was a financial advisor and a mortgage advisor, I spoke with many women who came across my desk, and many of whom were divorced or widowed or single. And there was a very common theme of, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, this is overwhelming to me, I'm afraid of, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where to start. And I heard this over and over and over again. So I left my firm last year, actually, and decided to go out on my own and do financial coaching. So that's the high level short version.
As usual, Anne-Marie, it sounds very familiar, right? We have somebody who experienced a real horrible situation and turned it into something fantastic afterward, and did so in a way that was completely, she was kind of like blindsided by it. Like, it kind of crept in through the back door and like, oh, where did that come from? And that's the way it often happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't it show that these things are usually a gift in the end?
They are. Yeah. We just don't see it at the time. At the time we say, what the crap is this?
Yeah.
What am I going through here? What am I going through with this stuff for? This is crazy. But yeah, it's a strange thing how you look back, over time to see the stuff that was the most traumatic, the most difficult, the most frustrating stuff you went through. And you say, my God, it all worked out. How did that happen?
Yeah. I agree. I think that some of our most challenging experiences in life are our greatest lessons for growth and our greatest lessons to somehow serve the world based on our experiences that we went through. If we can somehow help somebody else, shortcut their journey through that same experience, then all the better.
It also helps to provide credibility for you too as a coach, because you've been through the war, so to speak. So when you get a client who's going through a similar war, you say, well, yeah, I know exactly what you're going through because I went through the same thing.
I walked that journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep. That makes a difference. That provides more street cred than anything else. Just, I've been there. I've done that. I know what you're like.
Yeah. And life as a single mom and raising a child and that whole journey, it's nothing I would ever trade. It was, it's been wonderful. And my son is now 27 and engaged. So it's a beautiful thing.
That's the other theme that keeps coming out. I mean, it's not like people want to go through the trauma again. They don't want to do that, but they would never trade it in for anything. And the common theme seems to be, well, that's where I learned the most. That's where I had the most growth. That's where I had the most progress. Yeah, it wasn't all that fun to go through it, but wow, look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, my son was my why, is my why, and his well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually was all the focus. And, today he's a very happy, well-adjusted young man, and he's got a good relationship with his dad, and we have a great relationship, and he's marrying just an amazing woman. He chose better than I could have ever chosen for him. So it's all, I'm a happy mama.
That's fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous. So, okay.
Money and happy right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, let's tie money into that. Because when you go through, that kind of experience and you come out with that happy result in the end, the money had to align in some way, or you had to align with the money in LOA terms. But, somehow that all had to come together. And that, I imagine, becomes the basis for what you do when you're helping other people too, because that's the experience that you had. So tell us a little bit about that side of the story.
Yeah, the journey, shortly after my divorce was very bumpy. Even though I knew the investing and I was comfortable managing money, at the time I had my son, I left my corporate banking job because I wanted to raise him. And, after the divorce, I didn't want to leave him in daycare because dad was gone full time and I didn't want him to lose mom full time. So I was trying to figure out what to do. Had kind of a false start, in real estate, then got into the mortgage business, which allowed me to work at home and have a flexible schedule. But during that, because there was no steady income coming in, I got into some credit card debt and I got into some financial products and things that I, should have known better. But because I was in this sort of desperate place and I was, in this emotionally charged place, I made bad decisions. And looking back, I'm like, oh, Patti, what the heck? What were you thinking? But you give yourself grace. You go, this is what I did at the time when I was in a certain place in my life. I learned a lot, and it was, it was not oh, good, happy go lucky. I know how to manage money, so I'm going to be great. No, there was a lot of, I'll keep the language clean, but there was a lot of stuff hitting the fan. It was just, it was not pretty. It was not pretty.
Yeah, well, that's the way life is, isn't it? I mean, if life was all nice and smooth, everybody would do it. No, that's kind of a silly way of saying it, but you get my meaning. I mean, it seems we all kind of think like, oh, it's all going to be smooth sailing. It's never smooth sailing. Yeah, it's always got choppy waters.
Yep. So 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 1 step forward, 3 steps back, 4 steps forward. Yeah, it's it's a gyration. But at the end, you're moving forward, and it's oftentimes very slow. And only when you look back at it, can you look back and go, okay, now I get it. That was, that was why I did what I did. And also I, like I said, I learned to give myself grace versus, oh, Patty, woulda, shoulda, couldas, and beating myself up for it. And I think a lot of women do that too. It's like, oh, I should know better, and I should know this by now. And why do I not know investing? I should, know what I'm doing. And well, no, not necessarily. If you didn't learn it in school and you didn't learn it at home, then, who taught it to you? So.
By the way, a lot of men too. Just saying. I mean, it's not just the women. The men go through the same thing. I went through that kind of thing. Apparently, your ex-husband went through that kind of thing. So yeah, it's fairly ubiquitous, I would say.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, all right. Well, let's say we're talking to since your target market is women, primarily women who are perhaps single moms, but women who are trying to deal with financial issues of their own, trying to handle stuff they've never handled before, perhaps. Obviously, one of the things that happens when you're in that kind of mode, male or female, is you get a sense of overwhelm. You get a sense of, wow, this is just so far out of my control. What do I do? So let's pretend that you're talking to that person. What do you do?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm always going to suggest is, depending upon where you are in that situation, if you're newly divorced or newly widowed, take some time for self-care. Make sure you really get into a good place emotionally and physically and mentally. You cannot make a good decision when you're emotionally charged, especially when it comes to money and your finances. You just need to let that rest until you can just look at it more realistically and from a place of strength and empowerment versus fear. Because when you're in that place of emotional trauma, you're in fear. So give yourself that time for self-care. Also give yourself grace when it comes time to navigating this now on your own. And like I said, don't beat yourself up. Just start with that, place of being, grace for yourself. And then from a strategic point of view, usually I'll start with my clients where they're at. So some clients have, there are certain locations in terms of, where they are with their debts and assets and income and everything else. So, I'll start with where they're at and then we'll move forward. But, if we're starting from the very beginning, one of the first exercises we do is let's get a look and a handle on what it is that we're looking at today. What does your financial picture look like today? So from a place of, cash flow, what's coming in and what's going out. We need to get a really good idea of what money is going out. Whether that's creating a budget or looking at your existing budget. Oftentimes if they have nothing in place, I'll say, okay, let's look at the last 3 months of your checking account statement, your bank statements that show your debit transactions, and then your credit card statements. And let's take a highlighter, different color highlighters, and highlight the different, like you have utilities, you can highlight in yellow. Oh, going out to dinner, you highlight in red. All your groceries, highlight in pink, whatever. And go through those various categories. And then you can kind of look at the snapshot and go, wow, I do a lot of dining out. There's a lot of red on the sheet. That's just like a really quick visual. And then we sort of dig deeper into, okay, what can we cut out if necessary? And then what's coming in, whether it's from a job, whether it's Social Security, a pension, rental income, child support, spousal support, whatever that is. And if we've got a deficit, we've got to look at the situation and analyze that. And if it's a, nice positive number, we look at ways to invest it or pay down debt. So we just kind of take those steps first, from a cash flow perspective. And then from a net worth perspective, I want to know, okay, where do you stand net worth wise? So your home is an asset. Your retirement accounts, your brokerage accounts, all of your checking savings, all those are assets. And then you offset that against your liability. So if you have a home, you look at your mortgage. If you have credit card debt or any other debt obligations, school debt, we look at that. So that gives us our net worth, the assets minus liability. So it's very simplistic and it's very easy, but oftentimes people don't do it because we don't do it. But it's a great snapshot of where we're at today.
Okay. Also, I feel like we should touch on something that we won't go into a lot of detail about it because it's really outside of what you do. But there are going to be many women, particularly young women, who find themselves in desperate financial situations. They don't have assets. They don't even have an income. They're perhaps dealing with an ex who also didn't have much of an income, and literally they're trying to figure out how to pay the rent, let alone, go out to dinner. I can't remember the last time I went out to dinner, that kind of a situation. Now, obviously that's not somebody who's going to have any kind of money available. They can hire a financial coach. So it's not going to be somebody you typically deal with. But for women who are in that kind of situation, what can you advise them?
Yeah, I would look at resources, and there are a lot of resources out there that they can get help from, nonprofits and social sources that they can get help from in terms of, getting some cash flow to help pay utilities, help pay for groceries. And we'll look at ways to, let's look at your skills, your talents, your gifts, and how we can use those to find a job, and how we can get job ready, and how we can get interview ready, and start to explore our network, explore ways that we can reach out to people and find that job, find that resource. And there's so many things out there. There's women's groups that you can get beautiful clothing, suits for interviews, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. So oftentimes we'll suggest, and there's an organization out here where I live actually that focuses on that. It's called Single Mothers Outreach, and it's basically for those ladies who were, they're in trying times, and they've had to move in, with their parents or move in with friends or whatnot. And I always remind them it's just, this is not their life forever. This is a snapshot in time, and it kind of just like don't think of this as like forever. This is just a speed bump, and we will work past this. So it's important to not get stuck in that place of, oh my gosh, this is my life forever, because you lose hope. And if you lose hope, it really gets challenging.
And it's so easy to lose hope in a situation like that.
Sure. Absolutely. And some of those were domestic violence. It's you're coming out of some pretty trying circumstances. So, seek the help that you can from these outside sources. And really take advantage of those things. And all these are typically, there's no cost. So just do the homework and find the resources, because they're out there.
Probably another challenge for some people is being willing to ask for help too. Especially if you're in a situation like that, you can feel a lot of shame. You can feel a lot of self-doubt and so forth, and it can actually hold you back.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I think that from what I've seen, the moms, especially with kids, because they have this responsibility and their babies are their everything, they get past that. Mm-hmm. They want to protect their kids at all costs, and Mama Bear comes out.
Ah, yes.
And Mama Bear does what Mama Bear has to do, and leaves the ego at the door. So.
Yeah, that mama bear phenomenon, because you're right, that is what happens. The mama bear comes out, and I think it's probably, I'm not, I've never been a single mom, so I'm kind of, spitballing a little bit here, but I'm kind of imagining it. It's like it comes out and you look inside yourself and say, where did that come from? But then you just start riding your own wave, because that's where you have to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you, like I said earlier, my son's 27, and Mama Bear is still alive and well. Mama Bear is it doesn't go away. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I'm always going to watch over him. And he's living his own life, but it's, my love and protection of him will never stop.
I live in a section of Connecticut that has the largest, the town I live in actually has the highest number of bear sightings in the entire state, and in fact for the region. So we become very familiar around here with bears, and whenever we see a mama bear with cubs, everybody gives a really, really wide berth. Like, stay far, far away. They're far worse than the males, like not even close.
Yeah. And that, I think flows down into every human mama.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yep. It certainly does. I mean, Mama Bear and Marie, I mean, how often has that Mama Bear thing had to come out for you? I'm just kind of curious.
I think she comes out daily in some respect. Because you always want to protect your kids, don't you? And, you know, fortunately mine are okay. They've been in good situations so far, but yeah, you will just do anything to make sure that continues, just anything. Yeah. And I'm wondering, just Patti, when you get somebody who is in, especially at the moment, because like cost of living crisis, it's quite a tough time at the moment for some people. And when you get them, how do you change that mindset from, like, I know you've mentioned like this is not forever, and I loved that, because we do tend to go into a pit of like, oh my God, it's never going to change. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to. How do you manage to flip that over?
Yeah, it depends on where they're at with things, but the money mindset, I walk them through how we're programmed from birth to age 8, how we take in everything like a sponge, and we have these limiting beliefs as a result of that. And then our thoughts come out from those beliefs, and then our actions, and then our results. So we will learn about what limiting beliefs are playing in their subconscious mind. And we will start to poke holes and show that these are not true. They're just limiting beliefs that we learned from ancestors. And no shame to our parents or grandparents or anyone else. It's just, we are going to prove that wrong. It's not true that, rich people are greedy. That's not a true statement. And if you heard that growing up, that's got to be broken. So we start with understanding their mindset, their money story, and then we work on, sort of slowly changing it. And I always say it's like moving the Titanic. Doesn't happen quickly. It's a very slow process, and most likely a forever process. I mean, I'm still moving my Titanic. We're all still learning, to look at life differently. And we have situations that will, kick us back. And then we're like, oh, no, I'm being mindful of that. That's not the way it is. And then let's kick back up. So it's a combination of, there's the inner child work, there's breath work, there's energy work, there is hypnosis, there is affirmations, there's understanding the power of your thoughts. There's so many things that we look at that will help us kind of reprogram and reshift. And first and foremost, it's just being mindful and aware of what those belief systems are. And the most important thing is that the past does not dictate the future. If you came from a certain situation in the past, this does not mean your future is destined to this way forever. So that creates, there's a lot more to it, but that creates the foundation to understanding the starting point to change.
Incredible. There's so much there.
Yeah. There's a
that
lot
was
to unpack.
a
I think she just gave us the next 40 minutes of the show right there, actually, and probably another few hours after that.
Yeah, this conversation is a very big one, and the power of the subconscious mind and how it plays a part in our world. That's a full show in itself.
It is. Yeah. It also, I was going to ask a question before Anne-Marie came out with that really great question, and you answered it. You didn't do it deliberately, but you answered the question before I even asked it, which is the question that came out of the comment you made earlier. You said earlier that you really worked on making sure you didn't beat yourself up when things didn't go right. That's a skill set right there.
100%.
Because let's be perfectly honest. And I know this I do know from my personal experience. We are really good at beating the crap out of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And we get better at it over time, which is a heck of a thing.
Yeah. Our self-talk is so amazing. It's so important to, and I you might laugh, but I do walk around and I'll talk to myself. I call it a beating because I'm self-employed. And it's a situation where I am having that self-talk with myself, and it's positive. I am calibrating whatever's happening in that day. And it's, whether it's every day in every way I'm getting better. And you just say it over and over again. Every day in every way I'm getting better. Every day in every way I'm getting better. Whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, whatever that is, right? I know Bob Proctor was a big proponent of the affirmation of I am so happy and grateful for, and then whatever it is that that you want to attract. So, speaking in those terms and, being proactive with that is really important. I have to share something really sweet with you. My son will kill me for sharing this, but oh well.
We won't tell him.
I'm not sure he'll be listening, but whatever. So one of the things that I had from one of my coaches was to put a Post-it on my bathroom mirror that said, I love you. And so every morning I just say that to myself. I love you. I love you. I look at myself in the mirror and you just say that to yourself. And that's just part of that self-talk. And I came into my bathroom. This was like weeks after. And my son wrote underneath the Post-it, so do I.
Aww.
That's so cute.
Oh my gosh. And I was just adorable. And, I melted. I just absolutely melted. So needless to say, I've saved that Post-it. That will never be gone. But, that's just again, that self-talk. It's just so important to stay in that positive, hopeful environment. That just helps you attract that because you are, you are where your attention is. You will bring forth what you focus on.
Yeah, very true. And reminding yourself every step of the way, like you said earlier, this is, how did you describe it? Moving the Titanic? This is something that happens slowly over time. It doesn't shift immediately. It isn't a case of, well, I'm going to start, saying these affirmations to myself and my whole momentum is going to shift. It doesn't really usually play that way.
If that was the case, there would really be a lot of very happy people in the world.
That's right. Yeah. It'd be really simple, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Personal development does tend to be a lifetime thing, doesn't it? It's not a quick fix.
100%. I think the journey of learning takes you to the end of life for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the other themes that often gets discussed here on the show, and I'm curious to hear what your take is because I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be, but I want to hear it anyway, is that our financial lives are really a subset of our lives overall, and that the things that we need to do in our financial lives to make change are the same as the things we have to make in our overall lives. And I'm wondering if you believe that statement is true.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to that limiting belief theory. So if we are of the mindset that we come from lack and scarcity and low self-worth, that's going to affect how we potentially eat and take care of our body and exercise. So our health is then affected. It might take like your self-worth is affecting your relationships with finding a partner or finding a job that you want or, so many things in life. So, yes, having that place of feeling, empowered, feeling confident. And we all ebb and flow. It's not like we're going to walk out in the world and just be this powerhouse, right? We all ebb and flow, but understanding and being mindful of that will help us understand some of those dynamics that are at play in life. So when we look at things and we realize, you know what, I don't really like the situation at work, or I don't like the way I'm being treated by this person. What has to happen? I got to set boundaries. I've got to speak up. I've got to use my voice. I've got whatever it is that we have to do. Same with our finances. I don't like the way things are right now. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to sit down and look at my numbers. I've got to face the facts and look at the situation. So let's take a look at where we're at right now and go through our budget. Let's look at investing. If I don't know investing, I'm going to learn. Where can I learn how to invest? Who can teach me? So it's just taking those steps, taking those proactive steps, whether it's, again, your finances or your health. Compare it to health. You can't go to the gym and lift weights for a couple of weeks and think, well, gosh, I'm still 100 pounds overweight. What the heck? Why aren't I losing my weight? I've been going to the gym for 2 weeks, right? It's like, it doesn't happen that way. It's eating well and fitness is a lifelong journey. You need to continue to exercise and continue to stay well to be fit, regardless of weight. It's just to be fit and to keep your body healthy, right? So, same with money. You've got to just be on it and just for financial fitness, really.
And what you're saying there also reminds me, these things, not only do they overlap in the sense that the basic principles that apply to improving our financial situation is also what applies to the rest of our lives, but also if I look at what I call the big three being money, relationships, health, those are like the three general categories that most people are most often concerned with one way or, some combination of that. When the problems start to overlap, then it becomes even more challenging. So, for example, somebody who has a recurring chronic health condition, it's debilitating perhaps, then dealing with a financial issue becomes even harder because, it's one thing if you're in fairly good health and you're able to use something like affirmations or going to the gym to do exercise or whatever. And you get at least a short-term relative boost and like, oh yeah, I'm feeling good. This is all right. I'm on track here. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to take the next step. Whereas if you're feeling some sort of a chronic health condition that's holding you back, that's making you feel tired or anxious or angry or whatever, it just kind of like doubles it. It's kind of like, beating the crap out of yourself and then getting blamed for it. It's just one of those things that just kind of piles on top of itself. That becomes even more challenging. So let's address that for a moment. When you've got multiple things going on, how do you deal with that?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll share something, that I haven't shared yet with podcast hosts. So you're the first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Back in July, I woke up with a dizzy spell, thought it was vertigo. Went to countless doctors, was misdiagnosed. Long story short, I have this cavernoma, which is a malformation in my cervical spine that hemorrhaged. So it created a sensory issue for me. So my brain and my eyes and my feet weren't talking. So every day I'd wake up stumbling. I'd wake up dizzy. I'd wake up feeling, like I couldn't walk. So obviously I couldn't work. Or my work was very impacted. I was very, was hit hard with that. So fortunately, when I'm sitting here at my desk, I'm just staring straight. I'm not moving. It's okay. I am much, much better now. I'm in physical therapy currently, and I'm going through all this stuff currently. I'm not 100%. But I went through that. Firsthand. It's like, holy crap, I can't even see straight. And, oh my God, I'm self-employed. I can't bring in money. And, so yeah, you have the fear Mongols coming at you. You have will I ever get better? Will I ever, what's the end here? So I am navigating that firsthand, and it is, it has not been fun. I got to tell you. So there's a lot of that, I'm working on that mindset. There's a lot of that self-talk. And I am doing what I can control. I can't control this blob in my neck, my spinal cord. I can't control that, but I can control what I do. So I am, I've cleaned up my diet. I've always ate pretty well, but I cleaned it up like a lot. I started to see an acupuncturist. I started to see a functional medicine practitioner. I'm doing my physical therapy. I am trying to get out and walk every day. I'm doing what I can that I can control to help me navigate this, and try not to get sucked into the vortex of the darkness of the thing I can't control, and just do what I can, and just know that, if one thing I can tell you, this has shown me that, every day is precious, and no one knows what's going to happen. It could have been a horrible stroke that I had, and I couldn't walk and talk and do what I do. And I am very thankful and thank God every day that I didn't have a stroke and that I can still function, right? Yeah. Or a heart attack or something else that's, far, far worse. But the mindset is, goodness. I've been working that hard, and not to say there aren't days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore, and I burst into tears, and it's like, okay, pity party over, let's go. put the big girl panties on and let's just move forward. And you've got to do that. And so, I mean, it's an ebb and flow. Like I was saying earlier, I feel like I'm, back to my divorce days where I'm like picking myself up and just moving forward. And I say, someday I'm going to take this experience and turn it around and help somebody who's going through this. I don't know when, I don't know how. It's a heck of a ride. But I'm getting through it one day at a time.
Good for you for getting through it one day at a time. Because that's easy to give up on yourself when you're going through something like that. I know that from personal experience, as Anne-Marie knows. I mean, Anne-Marie's been through stuff too. I mean, when you're dealing with multiple things like that, and especially if it's health related, that's probably the ultimate in debilitating, because like you said, that's when you feel your mortality. That's when you get the sense of, wow. On the other hand, you also gain that perspective of just how valuable every day is. But the two go hand in hand. It's not like one is there without the other.
Right.
And and you're dealing with all of that. So, So congratulations on dealing with it as well as you're dealing with it.
Yeah. Well, some days are better than others, but thanks.
Yeah.
It's, like I said, it's a ride, but, every day I just try to find something, joyful and, grateful and focus on those things. And when I just feel like I hit a wall, I allow myself just to hit a wall and have a little pity party and then get through it. You have to let that happen. It's just part of the healing process.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's just not staying in that situation. And you're right. There's always some positive in a day that you can find. So it makes it look like it's not so bad. But do you also, Patti, know that when you get through it, it will make you stronger, and you'll have that same clarity you had when you were suddenly a single mum and thrown into this situation, and look what came out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. The resilience, knowing that I've been through this, I've been through that. I've been through this. I'll get to the other side of it. And someday this will be behind me. And, it's, keeping that end game in mind and staying in that positive, mindset. There's still some unknowns with whether they have surgery or not, and the risks associated with that, and whether I'm going to do that or not. And so there's still some of these things I have to navigate. But, at the end of the day, I still, envision the future. Like my son got engaged and his wedding is next year. And I'm like, I'm going to be dancing on that dance floor come hell or high water, I'm going to be, picking up my heels. So I just, keep that vision in mind, and just stay in that mindset.
Really cool. Yeah. And we wish you all the best in that journey as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. One thing that I want to bring into the conversation at this point is you were telling us before we got started that there's an ebook that you created, and we wanted to talk about that ebook a little bit. So just tell people about, what that's all about, how it came about. Give us the story on it.
Sure. So the ebook is called Women Soaring Solo. It's a financial guide for women, and it's a combination of two things. There's part financial guidance in there. And then there's also part of a book that I wrote post-divorce, 50 Ways to Flourish After Divorce. It was 50 things that I did personally to help me physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, from drum lessons to doing martial arts to, just various things that I did for getting my state back. And so that's all part of this ebook. And it's a free download on my website. And then there's a 30-minute training that you watch after that. I did a 5-day masterclass, and I ended up condensing the, meat and potatoes of that 5-day masterclass. And I made it to like a 35-minute training. And so that's all free, and it's on the homepage of my website. Okay.
So we'll make sure that we include a link to the website to make it easy for people to find that. By the way, I love that you did drum lessons. Where'd that come from?
I know.
That's pretty cool.
You know what? My son, started taking drum lessons very young, and I thought, God, that looks like fun. And I love it. So while he was in his class, I went into my class, and he became an amazing drummer. He is like, he's the bomb. And I have a drum set in my garage actually, and I'll go out there sometimes and just bang on it. I don't do that well. I'm not that good of a drummer, but I have thought about going back, and starting up again, because it is just, I mean, it's a fun release, it's just a fun, it's a fun release. So,
I was thinking then as you were saying it, that just sounds so therapeutic.
Just
it is. Banging away.
Yeah. My neighbors don't love it very much, but oh well. Oh gosh, but it is fun.
It's the gift of music. What's not to like?
It is music. Well, I don't know if it's music, it's noise.
Hey, given the state of popular music today, it's about half of all music. I think you're safe in saying that it's music.
That's probably true. True.
Yeah. Rhythm rhythm is in its heyday right now. I mean, I can't remember any time, and I'm a musician. I'm something of a student of music history. I can't think of a time in history where rhythm played as much of a role as it plays today. And I don't see any sign of that trend discontinuing. I think if anything, it's going to get even more dramatic as time goes on. So I think you're safe. I do not play drums. No, I am a former guitarist and former piano player back to being a keyboard player. I'm reteaching myself how to play keyboard after about a 30-year gap. So
fun. But good for you.
Yeah.
I see a band forming here.
In fact, I use my skills to write the theme for the show too. So I was able to create that based on having had a musical background. So, I was able to put it to use. Yeah. But music, whether drumming or melodic, whatever side of music that you're looking at, it is therapeutic, as Anne Marie says. It's extremely therapeutic. One of the things that I love doing the most is when I'm feeling stress of some kind. If I can't be doing a show, that's probably my favorite thing to do. If I can't be doing a show, I'll go over to the keyboard and I'll just turn it on for 10 minutes. I won't even necessarily play very long, but just 10 minutes. It's amazing what I can do in 10 minutes in terms of just calming my nervous system down and turning the attitude around. Yeah, it's really something.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so from now on, I'm going to go out and play the drums when I feel a little anxious about this
there you go.
raspberry in my neck, right? I'm just going to go out there and bang it.
Bang it, yeah. Yeah, and boy, that is going to let it out. I mean, because that's physical. I mean, keyboard, you're pushing keys down. Guitar, you're pressing strings and you're plucking a string. Drum, you're going wham. I mean, you're really taking it out on the drum.
and I get winded after playing for a while. It's like, wow, that's a good workout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, all right. So you have the book, and it's available for people on the website. Is that like an entree to getting to know more about you and your coaching service? Or, I mean, how does that fit into your overall model?
Yeah, it's a good way to learn about just, some of the information that I share. And then the training gives you kind of an indication as to what I'm about in terms of, my teaching. As a financial coach, it's sort of part financial strategist, part financial educator, part life coach. And it's a lot of teaching. And so you'll see my way when I do my teaching. I do one-on-one coaching. So that's, probably the most, active part of my services. People like to talk about their money privately and they have to have, they want to have help with their particular situation. But all that's on my website. There's links there. Work with Patti privately. You can learn about, what that looks like. And the free download. So yeah, the website's kind of, a great place to go to learn about just working with me. And I do offer a complimentary, consultation. So if you go to the contact page, my calendar's there. They can book a call with me and we can have it's a free 30-minute conversation and I'll learn about them. They learn about me and we see if it's a fit.
That's cool. Yeah. When you said, one-on-one, I thought about that for a second and I realized this is probably, you're right. It's probably one of those fields where you really can't do group coaching. It's one thing that somebody does not want to talk about in a group is what their financial situation is. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, there is some situations where, like I have what's called Minding Her Money Circle, and it's basically a 6-week course. And I'm looking at potentially starting a membership site sometime this year, but it's more education. So you're just listening to me teach. And then if you have a Q&A on that particular subject, you're not necessarily opening up about your situation. You're not going to say, I've got 20 grand in credit card debt. Help me get out of this. But I'll show you, generally speaking, the different ways to get out of credit card debt. And if you want to sit back and just listen, you can do that. If you want to ask some specific questions, you can do that. If you want to email me anonymously and I can ask the question anonymously, you can do that. So there's several different ways that the group setting does work. And there is actually power in community. I think when other women are together and they're all sort of going through the same thing and they realize that, wow, a lot of other women are struggling with this too, or I don't feel so alone in this. I don't feel like I'm, isolated in this predicament. That's powerful too. They just don't want to, shed their skin and say, I am, this is where I'm at and I need help. They don't need to share their private financials. It's not about that. It's just about, we all want to learn together. We all want to learn about, investing, and we all want to learn about credit and all the other things that go into money.
Makes sense. I love that you've mentioned the credit card debt, because I have a personal history with that. My business got wiped out by the 2008 financial crisis. As did I was married at the time. My wife's business also got wiped out. So we lost our entire income within a month, which was quite terrifying.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we were too. And the next few years were really pretty miserable trying to dig our way out. And in the course of trying to dig our way out, we went deep into debt. I think at the peak, I was 65 grand in debt and had no idea how I was going to pay it off. I couldn't even hardly get the income going. It was pretty rough. I did eventually get it paid off. Sadly, a couple of years later, we ended up getting divorced. But the thing that kind of amazed me when I looked back at how I got the thing paid off was, first of all, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in ways you don't expect. I had some good fortune come my way. I also had a plan where I was just, paying a little bit here, a little bit there, that kind of thing. But then when I added it all up, I realized, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell out of that experience, as listeners know, there was about 25% of it I couldn't account for. Like, how did I pay that off? Especially since I paid it off in the midst of the pandemic. 2021 was the last year that we paid everything off. And it was our worst year financially. Like, how did we do that? And I couldn't understand it. It took months for me to figure out what happened. And I finally figured it out. During the pandemic, we weren't doing anything. We weren't spending any money on anything. So I had money to pay off the debt with. And I hadn't made the connection. I didn't realize how much we had been spending on just stuff to go, have fun or go do something. It really does add up. And it took the pandemic to kind of point out to me, that's how you get there. That's how you get out of something like that.
That's a silver lining. That's interesting.
Yeah. There were a lot of silver linings out of that pandemic. The pandemic was horrible, but it's amazing talk about how people find strength in the midst of chaos and crisis and turmoil. The pandemic was a great example of that. It happened in so many different ways. People demonstrated mental and physical health in the midst of the pandemic in ways that still blow my mind. Yeah.
We are a resilient species for sure. And I think that the other beautiful thing that came out of it, silver lining wise, is the remote work that we have now. Yeah. People are at home. There's no more commuting. There's, more productivity as a result of that. And their savings on the employer side from getting rid of their buildings or whatever the case is. It's a win-win. And the remote work is just, I love working at home. It's and I'm far more productive than, I'd be in an office setting where you get interrupted by people talking, or someone goes in your office and they want to have a conversation about something. And it's like, 20 minutes later, you're trying to get back to work. And so anyways, it's, a lot of silver linings to the pandemic and a lot of very, heart-wrenching stories, no less, but,
oh, yes. Interesting too, because, as you're describing that, I'm remembering some news stories I was seeing recently. Various corporate employers are trying to pull people back into the office buildings, and they're getting a lot of pushback on it. far more than they would have gotten before the pandemic. People would have said, "Oh yeah, okay." Now it's like, no way, not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an entirely different dialogue from what it was, 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Really
100%. Yeah. And the thing is, if they've been doing it for a year or two and everything is being productive and everyone's doing great, why do I have to come back into the office? If I'm not getting my job done, that's one story. But if I'm getting everything done and you're happy with it and clients are happy or whatever the circumstances are, why do you want to see my face? What's the deal? So,
I mean, I'm a hybrid worker. I do go into the office, and recently we've been told if we could go in a day a week, which I was already doing. And sometimes I really have to force myself to go into the office. But actually, when I get there, I remember it's actually pretty cool, and I get to see people I don't normally see, and I hear things which relate to my work, and I can go and find people quicker. So there is the benefits. But yeah, I think working from home, just having that option now to do maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
Is something I couldn't imagine going to work every day.
Yeah. I like the hybrid too, because like you said, we are all humans and we like that interaction, that community. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 9 to 5 every day. And
the commute and everything every day would just, it's a lot. I don't know how I did it.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably, what's your commute to work?
Oh, to be fair, it's only a few miles. It probably takes like about half an hour, 45 minutes. But when you've got to pick up kids from school and childcare and different places, it was a juggle. And then get home, do tea, go to their classes. I just wonder when I ever sat down and breathed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I did, actually. I'm not sure I did.
Well, we're going to assume that you breathe because you're still here. Otherwise, you'd probably have fallen over dead without the oxygen. But yeah, I think we get the point.
Yeah.
Well, okay. This is proving to be a really interesting conversation. Anything that you can pass along, before we do a wind up, anything you can pass along to people who are perhaps dealing with financial issues, wanting to find some way to get things under control more than they have at the current time. Obviously they can go check out the book, but any other ideas that you can just pass along, quick ideas that people can just turn into an action item that they can do right away?
Yeah. The first thing would be what I mentioned earlier in the episode was that get a handle on what you're looking at today. Pull out your statements, look at your budget, look at what's coming in, what's going out, get a real good, solid understanding of where you are today. Because you can't plan a trip going somewhere unless you know your starting destination, right? So if you're here and you want to go to, point B, you need to make that plan to go to point B from where you are. So understand where you want to go by when. So if it's a retirement period, if it's, buying a house or whatever that looks like by when you have a timeline, then create that plan and don't be shy about asking for help. People can help you shortcut that journey that you take from, going from point A to point B. If someone's done that before you, have someone that can save you thousands of dollars and how many hours of time, just by working with somebody who has, that help. So whether it's your CPA, a financial advisor, a financial coach, a life coach, or you're an attorney or whoever it is that you have, I will say don't necessarily believe everything you see online. There's a lot of good information online and there's a lot of not so good information online. So just be careful of that. But yeah, first and foremost, I would say just look at your situation today. And then just give yourself grace. Again, just be kind to yourself and know that this is just a stepping stone and a journey to learning. And, we all start at the beginning at some point.
Yeah, I like that. I especially like the bit about looking for somebody who's been on the same route, who's been there before. We tend to forget that other people go through the same kinds of things we go through. We feel like we're the only ones going through that. Yeah. When chances are there are probably a million other people who've done the same thing, just we didn't know about it at the time.
Yeah.
So it's a great question to ask, who out there has been through this before? And, are any of those people in a position where they can help me figure this out?
100%. Yeah. I think it's important to, tap into your network, tap into people that you know and find those resources because they're out there.
Mm-hmm. So remind us once again how people find you, if they want to find you.
Yeah, the best place would be my website. It's just pattihandy.com. It's PATTIHANDY.com. The homepage has that free download. On the contact page is the calendar to book a call with me. And that's a great place to start.
Okay. Something that I make it a practice to do now that I want to do with you, you like so many people who come onto the show, you became a giver. You found a way you wanted to give back to others because you learned stuff along the way that you knew would be valuable to others. So you do this podcast. You've done, I don't know how many podcasts you've done, but it sounds like quite a few just the way you expressed it earlier. So I'm guessing it's a large number. Probably also the social media posts. I don't know if you blog, but there's a number of different ways that you've been putting information out there. And it occurred to me a couple of years ago that we have a tendency, especially those of us who are trying to give back in this way, we have a tendency to put the stuff out and not get appreciated by the people who consume that information. We kind of assume, well, that's just part of the process. But no. We should be appreciated for that. So on behalf of those people you've never met, you've never seen, who have been consuming that content from you, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind. Yeah, it is hard to to know what is being, absorbed out there in the world. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. So finally, as always, I always go to my co-host, Anne-Marie in this case, because my co-hosts, one of the things that all my co-hosts have in common is they have this tremendous ability to take an entire hour's conversation and tie it all together and show us what the unifying theme is that becomes the takeaway for the show. And Anne-Marie is one of the best at that. So Anne-Marie, what's your takeaway today? What's the one thing that you're saying? Yeah, that's what is sticking in my mind.
I think for me this week, Walt, is that Patti has come in. She's described people when they're just divorced or, single parents, life-changing stuff. Financial problems can be very hard to get out of. And I think Patti's given us some very beautiful and achievable actions to do to make these bite-sized things to make life a bit better. So just put one foot in front of each other, in front of each other, and then make that difference. Look forward. And if not, go drumming in the garage.
There you go.
See, there's the surprise part of the kit right there. You have a kit. You have a drum kit as part of the kit, so that when you're dealing with when the crap is hitting the fan, you just can't take it anymore. You go bang a drum a few times.
Go bang a drum in my garage. Yeah,
I love it. That's fabulous. Well, Patti, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you
stories,
both.
I should say.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you both.
Oh, we're very glad that you were here. And thank you once again also for reintroducing a topic we haven't talked about in a while, because finances are a big part of what, drives us in our life, but we have a tendency to forget about that sometimes. So thank you for reintroducing the topic. We appreciate that.
Of course. Hopefully we help somebody today.
I think you can bet on it. That's one thing that always happens with every episode. There's somebody out there who needed to hear some key piece of the message today, and you helped deliver that. So thank you for that.
Wonderful.
And thank you, Anne-Marie, as usual. Well, we got 2 out of 3 now, so we just got to get this, pattern going. We got to make sure we're doing it every single week, where you get the link, we're including you in the conversation. Yeah. We'll make sure it keeps going. But yeah, thanks for being here. We really appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.